Welcome to the Piston Fanatic. I'm your host, Dave Dalton, and I'm excited to share my passion and perspective of our Detroit Pistons as we go on this fantastic voyage together. I've been a diehard Piston fan since the days of Dave Bing and Bob Lanier. I've also been the varsity basketball coach of a very successful program in northern Michigan. And I want to thank all my listeners for making this the fastest growing Piston podcast. Please subscribe and like, and let's get started. Pistons lost another one tonight. 19 in a row, 123 to 91, and it's the worst loss of the year, and it kind of felt like it. And this team is just struggling, but we're going to get into some things tonight. We're going to talk about reports about the contention between the front office and Monty Williams over the handling of Jaden Ivey. And if you've listened to my podcast, you know there's some contention here. We're going to talk about how he's not playing the young core, the core four, and how we're not developing our team. We're going to talk about Monty's words. Do Monty's words match his actions? And let's get started. Let's start with that report by Jake Fisher, who is a big-time NBA reporter. He is the NBA head guy for Yahoo Sports, and he's the one that made the report that Monty's handling of Ivey has been a point of contention within the organization. And, I told you about my source that's a reliable source that says that there's problems, big problems brewing, and is that affecting the team? How can it not affect the team when they know that, if they see Troy walking around, they know Troy, and they see Monty walking around, and they see Ivey not playing, and they see these reports, and how can it not impact the team? And, there's already enough struggles that we're having with everything. So the article goes on to say that it's a head scratcher, and about Ivey not playing, why he's not playing, and the narrative that Monty supposedly plays favorites, and it's a narrative that was not just happened in Detroit here, but it's also happened when he was in Phoenix. And so if there's some players he likes, they play, and they're treated one way, and there's players that he doesn't like, and it just really seems obvious that Jaden Ivey is the one that he doesn't like. And so we're going to get into that. And it's just frustrating because, even bad teams win games. All of you are big sports fans. And so you look at the NBA scoreboard every night. There's a team almost every night that if there's a bunch of games played where there's a surprise where some team beats another team that you wouldn't think they should. But not this team. We just keep on losing. And I would contend that we're not the best roster. It's not put together exactly right, but we are certainly playing worse than the sum of our parts, and that is what you want when you have a good team. You play better than the sum of your parts. But we have some talent on this team. I will tell you, I started this podcast because I was excited about this team, and I still think there's promise here, but it's going down fast. But I think I was more excited about this team than I've been for the Pistons in 15 years. I've been more excited. There was more hope for a future and that these young guys, and it was going to take time. Everybody's in too big of a hurry, in my opinion, about being good fast. But you're not in too big a hurry to see 19 losses. You have every right to be frustrated and upset over 19 losses. So I hear you, and I hear it in the comments, and I don't disagree with you at all. But I just do know that there was a vision that, you put these guys, again, those Ivey, Duran, Cade, and Asar, and then add around them and develop them. And in a couple years, we could have a real good team. And again, the Orlando Magic, they were 5-20 to start last year, and they ended up going 39-38. We're not going to do that. I can promise you that. And then this year, they're one of the top teams in the East, and they just lost. They're like fourth in the East now because they lost 2 in a row before they beat us. So they have one of the top defenses in the league, and they really put the hammer to us. We had been one of 4 teams that had scored 100 or more in every game this season, which is crazy to me to think about that all the other teams, all these great teams have good offenses, and our team is not good. We had a lot of games where we got 101 or 102 or 103, I think. And so, because we're one of the worst scoring teams in the league. So, again, I think that we're not at all coming close to maximizing, and we talk about, and my listeners, in the comments, I get to hear, your opinions on the rotations, and I will go to my grave saying that Ivey needs to play, and here tonight, Ivey and Asor, 8 minutes in the first half, and Monty comes out after the game against the Grizzlies and says at the press conference, I got to cut back minutes on players so that I can get more minutes for Ivey, so we can work him in better and get him in a rhythm. And Asar's not in a rhythm. Asar, everybody in the league was just amazed at Asar. And I'm not saying that he can contribute to winning basketball because of his lack of shooting, but they're struggling now and we're not winning. And why aren't they playing when if we have a future, they're our future? Monty's words do not match his actions. And if that makes him a liar, then he's a liar. I don't know what that means, but it's just real frustrating when he said things like that before, but it's affecting Ivey and it's affecting Asar. They're not playing as well as they played earlier. Ivey's shooting 50%, and we can't score. And he scores. I told you he was before this game. He was 8th in minutes, and he was 8th in shots, and he was 4th in points scoring. Does that tell you that he can score the ball? And his percentages were better than. His 3-point percentage, they're better than Killian's. His field goal percentage, Killian's up to 42. He's shot really well the last 3 or 4 games. But anyway, Ivey can get to the rim. Ivey can do a lot of things, but it's just he can't get to the rim if he's sitting on the bench. And Asar can't get a rebound if he's sitting on the bench. And Asar was one of the best rebounders in the league for his size, and one of the leading offensive rebounders. And he was one of the best lockdown defenders. And supposedly we were going to play guys that could play good defense. And I just think that, Monty's losing sight of what, he doesn't know where to turn. I got to believe he's, confused and perplexed about what to do. And he changes his mind every day about what's going to happen. And, tonight we play Bagley Stew out there with Killian and Cade and, and Bogey, which they, some of those guys should start, but it's just really frustrating for all of us. And I appreciate that you hang in there with me and listen. And I got, like I said, I'm real thrilled with the support with a losing team that people still want to follow my podcast. And it just really means a lot to me. But Duran's out for 2 weeks, so we're not the same team. We're not even close to the same team. He is a vital part of this team. He is our best rebounder. He is our best interior defender. He is our best lob threat, and now he's not playing. And so, again, you're tired of excuses, and you should be, but we cannot possibly be the same team. So, again, I'm going to tell you this. Again, you hold me to it. Make sure you blast me in the comments if we don't do better in the month of January, because that's what it's going to take for Duran to get back and get in rhythm. Hopefully Monty starts playing Ivey and Asar by then. And, you can't just say, play this guy, but, it matters who you play guys with. And the same thing with our bench. I just want to see what can happen offensively with Cade, Ivey, and Bogey playing consistent minutes together. And that hardly happened tonight. The only time we really saw it was against the Grizzlies in the second quarter, and they had an 11-2 run. But tonight we started out the game. It was 18-12. Starters were looking good. And Monty said after the game that he's going to have to look at it and look at things, but I want to play the starters more, but I'm inclined to play the starters more, but they can't play 48 minutes. Well, you're right, Monty, but you can stagger them. You can not play 5 bench guys all at the same time. You can stagger. You can take somebody out 6 minutes into the game and put one person in and then put somebody back in. He staggers a little bit, but Killian was minus 22, the worst plus minus on the team, and he's a starter. And so it wasn't like they were real effective. In the third quarter, the starters were all in, and Orlando went on a 14-1 run, 14-1. So that's not the answer. He tried to act like that's the answer because that kind of looked that way in the first half. But we play Indiana on Monday, and I haven't talked much about the in-season tournament, and it's not, I think it was a smart thing by the NBA. I think they're getting people interested in basketball. And to say that some people act like it's not going to matter to the players, but it does, and they're human. They get to hear the hype. They get to see the court. They walk out on the court. They know something's different. It gets their juices flowing. Even LeBron James, he's played in more games than anybody, and he wants to win this thing. And so Indiana's playing Lakers on Saturday, And then Indiana's got to come around, and they have off Sunday, and they got to play us on Monday. Well, my hope is human emotion. They're going to have such a big letdown, either whether they win or they lose to the Lakers on Saturday in the championship game in Las Vegas. But I think that they could easily have a letdown. So let's just hope we have a couple of days off, and they only will have one day off, and we'll see if we can just get lucky. That's the thing. Terrible teams win games all the time. You guys are sports fans. You've seen it. I've seen it my whole life. How any given Sunday in football, you see the worst team can beat the best team, and it just happens all the time in sports. But not to our Detroit Pistons. So that's what's really frustrating. And now, having Durant out, now Bagley, he started tonight, and he left the game with back spasms. So that's what he had missed games prior to this. A lot of people were wondering why he wasn't playing Bagley, but Bagley was on the injury report before against the Grizzlies. He was out because of back spasms. So let's go through the box score for tonight. Again, we lost 123 to 91, worst loss of the year, and it just seemed like it couldn't have been worse than the Toronto loss, but Bogey, 28 minutes, and he's just coming back from being out. He missed all the preseason. He also training camp. He missed preseason. He missed all these first games. He came back. He had 22 points in both the first two games back. And then this is not an uncommon thing that I've seen in sports, even for myself. If I haven't played in a while, sometimes I could go out there and light it up at first, the first couple times back, and then after a while, the fact that I hadn't been playing kind of caught up with me. But he had 28 minutes, 4 for 10, not good. 1 for 3 on threes, which is not bogey-like. 0 for 1 on free throws. He never misses a free throw, or he's not over 90%. 3 rebounds, 1 assist, and 2 turnovers. And so he had 9 points. That wasn't his game, and we need him to score. We need him to score real bad, and I think that he will. So he's got a couple days off. Stu, 29 minutes. And Stu did an amazing job on Banchero for the first part of the first quarter. He D'd him up so good. Banchero didn't know what to do. Banchero couldn't get a good shot off. He was trying as hard as he could to score, and Banchero's had a really good year. I felt like he was like slightly overrated as a rookie. His percentages were really bad. I thought he was just a guy that was going to chuck up a bunch of shots, and he has shot way better this year, way better than he did last year. And he ended up lighting us up, even though he did good, not quite as good as Wagner, but he ended up scoring on us. But Stu did a magnificent job on him at first. But Stu, 29 minutes, starts 1 for 3. He's 1 for 3 on threes, and 7 rebounds, 3 assists, and 3 points. So we don't have scoring, and he's 1 for 3. And, he is a role player. You need role players. You don't need everybody on the team that's just chucking up shots all the time. You want your best scorers to shoot the most times. And so when you got a group of guys out there, you want to let, again, you want to have some guys that don't shoot a lot. That's why Asar was always really cool, because he could get offensive rebounds, and he could get loose balls, and he could get steals and blocks and do all those things and not have to score. But Stu has not been getting it done, and Stu's three-point shooting is going in the wrong direction, and he's not even looking for him. And so what do we do? Why how can we just keep running him out there? So Bagley, 23 minutes, 4 for 7, not as good as he usually is. 1 for 2 on free throws, 5 rebounds. But this is the killer that gets us every game, that our post players. 4 turnovers. There's no way Marvin should be having 4 turnovers in 23 minutes. And he had 9 points, but who knows if he's going to be able to play against Indiana on Monday. I hope he does. But Killian, 32 minutes, another great game for Killian. 7 for 11. He's been on fire. But he still can't shoot the 3, so they still don't have to. He still doesn't space the floor. 0 for 2 on threes. 2 for 3 on free throws, and this cracks me up. Killian, for one reason, guys, they step to the line. The coach, when I was coaching, I would always tell who I want to shoot the technical fouls. But Killian stepped up there a bunch of times, and he's only a 75% career, I think, free throw shooter. But he missed. He shot a technical foul again. I think he's like 1 for 4 on technical foul shots this year. But he had 7 rebounds, which is really good. for a guard, 4 assists. It's not bad. 2 turnovers, and usually he doesn't turn it over as 4 to 2 to 1 turnover ratio. But he had 16 points. He was minus 22, and again, plus minus isn't always accurate, but it does say something. It's the worst plus minus on the team. So Cade, 32 minutes, 8 for 15. He shot pretty well. 2 for 6 on threes. It kills us. He comes off a high pick and roll, and he nails the 3, and then the whistle blows after he shoots it, not before he shoots it. And then Bagley gets called for an illegal screen. Same thing happened to Ivey later in the game. Ivey nails the 3 coming off, and they called it moving pick on Weissman. So we have this happen too many times, and I was adamant to my players about this because referees love to make that call. In high school, they love to make that call. You could, on a ball screen away from the ball, not a ball screen, when you were doing a pin down away from the ball, a lot of refs in high school where I coached, they would let you just annihilate people. But even if you just moved or brushed them slightly when you were setting a high ball screen, they would call a foul on the picker. So anyway, we do that too much. Duran had it happen against the Grizzlies like 3 times, I think. So that's got to get coached. So Cade, again, he was 3 for 4 on free throws. He usually doesn't miss too much, but he had only 2 rebounds, 6 assists, and 3 turnovers, 21 points. And so, again, I'm fine if Cade averages 3.5 turnovers a game. I'm fine with that. Luka, he averages for his career like 4.5, but he needs to get less than 4, or especially less than 5. He needs to get 4 or less. So anyway, he still has to do better, and we still count on him. And but that's still a solid game when the rest of your team, he made over half of his shots and scored 21 points, and your team struggles to score. Ivey, 21 minutes, so he got to play a little extra in garbage time, but it's affecting him. I can't believe that there wouldn't. I've said that all along, that it has to be affecting him. 22 for 7 shooting, which he's usually way better than that. 0 for 4 on threes, which he made one, but it didn't count. But he's struggling now on shooting a little bit, and he was shooting really well for a long time, even coming off the bench, even only playing 20 minutes. He was still really productive and really efficient. 0 turnovers, 8 points. Asar, 19 minutes. Again, those guys both played only 8 minutes in the first half. They got a little extra because we were behind by so much. But he was 2 for 12 shooting, Asar was. So that's, kind of amazing that he got that many shots up in 19 minutes. But he was 0 for 5 on threes. And that, when the draft came around, I didn't want to get Asar because of this. And after we got him, I was excited. I'm not going to lie, because he did everything else at such a high level. But Ivey and Asar are not going to get better sitting on the bench and watching. And, Monty appeared to love Asar at first, and he was playing him all the time, 30 minutes or more. And then all of a sudden he's not. And, everybody recognized how great he was, how he does all those other things at such an elite level. And obviously you have to really pay attention to who you have on the court with him. And that matters. But he has to play. He has to play, like I said, I want him to play, 25 to 30 minutes. So average about 28 minutes. That's about what he should average. And I've said this before. You can sit him down if he's struggling. You can tell him not to shoot threes. I mean, I guess that would hurt his development, but he does. He's consistent. When he played for Overtime Elite, which isn't good competition, his percentage was bad. So anyway, having said that, and as important as spacing is, I think if you played him with Bojan and Cade and Ivey, then he would be okay. I think that he could do enough other things, and those guys could bring enough shooting that they would make it happen. So Weissman, 15 minutes. He had 0 points. Oh, no, he had 2 points. He made 2 free throws, I think. But he had 5 rebounds in 15 minutes. And it's hard. Again, it's hard for all those guys, when you play 15 minutes a night. And he didn't look as good tonight. But I tell you, he was amazing against the Grizzlies. And he played 8 minutes. He came out there in those 8 minutes. He was full of fire, man. And he still only played 8 minutes. So Joe Harris has been, a lot of you guys are disappointed that we got him. I'm going to tell you we had to spend a certain amount of money in the cap, and so he was a space filler. He's got a contract that's going to end after this year, and so that'll give us money, for free agency. I didn't think that he was going to get to play a lot. I didn't think that he was going to that we would ever re-sign him, but he only gets to play like 12 minutes, and so he's 0 for 1. That's been what he's played in a lot of games. He's only played a few minutes, very few minutes, and he hasn't hit this shot, but he is a great shooter. But Livers, 12 minutes, not a lot of minutes, but he was 0 for 5 from the field, 0 for 3 on threes, which he's supposed to be a floor spacer, 1 rebound, 1 assist, 0 points. So my contention is give those minutes to Asar. And you're trying to play all those guys. Livers has not maybe had a fair chance in his career because he's always been injured, but he was a second round pick for a reason, and not that I guess Jokic was a second round pick, so and Dennis Rodman was a second round pick, but usually there's for a reason, and he's not a great athlete. He hasn't shot the ball well for us. He's more of a shooter than Stewart is. There's guys that are shooters and guys that aren't shooters. And some guys that will shoot tougher shots and contested shots, and some guys that won't. Like Sasser's a shooter. He's going to go up there and he's going to let it fly. And Asar's not a shooter. He's making himself shoot. Stu makes himself shoot. Livers doesn't make himself shoot. He lets it fly. But if there was one positive from tonight's game, it was Burks. He only played 12 minutes, but he was 4 for 7 and 2 for 3 on threes and 4 for 4 from free throws. He scored 14 points in 12 minutes. So project those over 48 minutes, and that's a lot of points. But he is that good of a shooter, and it's just been real disappointing. And he started out on fire, and he got injured, and then he's struggled so bad, and he could have helped us win some of these games in the streak if he had shot the ball like he did early on, or if he shot like he did last year. So we shot 52%. They shot 55%. They scored in the paint all the time, all day. But here's the thing. We were 6 for 30 on threes, and that's terrible. And that's the thing. We're not a good three-point shooting team. And when you have Bogey shoot bad on threes or not make many, then that's tough. And then Ivey was bad, and Asar was bad, and Livers was bad, and Stu wasn't good. So anyway, we didn't get out. We outscored them from the free throw line, 17-15. And we shot more free throws than they did, but they out rebounded us. We only had 15 turnovers, so 15 is my magic line that if we get only 15 turnovers, we should have a shot. But it's still not good, and they only had 9 turnovers. So obviously, good teams have fewer turnovers. So. Like I said, we're in trouble. We got Duran is out for 2 weeks, and that's going to just really hurt us. And we got in a week from today, I think, is December 15th, when everybody that signed within the last year by their team or as free agents, they will be eligible for trade. They're not eligible for trade. So it's a weird thing about trades in the NBA and the front offices. There's like these, things that everybody does. So they don't really consider trades until December 15th, even though you could trade. A lot of the players are eligible to be trades, but even like I said, the last podcast, the last 2 years in the month of December, there have been 0 trades. So who knows if there will be this year. I don't think there's been reports from Woj saying that Bogey, a lot of teams, that there are still some multiple contenders that are interested in trading for Bojan. I think that we need to have him stick around for a little while, but maybe trading by the deadline. Again, it's all about what teams are willing to offer. But if Monty was looking for 2 first-round picks, that never was going to happen for him. So, but I still think he would be real valuable on a good team. That a lot of teams need shooting, and so if we can get a valuable an asset, or so if we get a late first-round pick for him, it's still an asset, and it's still, even though we might not even use the pick, but to have that for a trade chip is real valuable. And like I said, I love Bogey. I love watching him play. He had a bad game tonight, but he is fun to watch because he is a real basketball player offensively. But he's going to be 36 at the end of next year, and he's not going to be part of our future. So we'll just have to see what happens with him and with the trade market. I know everybody wants to have Troy fired, and there's reports by Mark Stein saying that it didn't look like anything was going to happen until the end of the year. But the tricky thing about it is, and I'm not saying this fire Troy or not fire Troy. He's done a lot of good moves. He's done a lot of moves that are questionable, but his picks aren't looking as good. But I think if they had a different coach, they would look better. That's just my opinion. But if you fire him, do you fire him before the trade deadline? Do you fire him before the draft and free agency this summer? And if you don't fire him before those things, then you would almost have to keep him the next year to see what happens with the moves that he makes. So that's the challenge with Troy. I know a lot of people are really upset with him. And again, it's just I just every day I wake up and I hope that Monty changes his mind about Ivey and Asar. And I think that the rotations are a serious thing, and I'm not a genius, but I would like to coach that team, or at least I would like to develop a substitution pattern with this team and see what happens. But obviously we're not going to get to do that. But I want to thank you for listening, and I want to thank you for making this such a great podcast. And please comment. I love the comments. Again, I do my very best to respond to every comment. Maybe I don't. It takes me a long time, and sometimes I go through them and I comment on them, and then one pops in later, or somebody comments on somebody else's comment, and so maybe I don't get it, but I do my best because I love reading them. I love your knowledge and your opinions, but please be the reason that somebody feels loved and cared for and listened and heard, and go Pistons.